Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Erica and I am a former therapist of 5 years and now I am a life coach. And I like to share the major life lessons that had the biggest impact on my healing journey to hopefully save you from making a lot of mistakes and from suffering. And today I actually want to talk about forgiveness, most importantly on how forgiveness is an essential part to truly healing from the soul. And I know that this is a topic that a lot of people don't like to hear about, especially if you're still stuck in a state of feeling angry and hurt and wrong at the things that happened to you. Hearing the thought of even like forgiving someone is probably not something that you want to digest. So if you feel reactive just at me saying this, maybe it's not the time for you to watch this. But if you are feeling like, I don't really like the sound of it, but I want to consider it, definitely stay tuned and watch the rest. Okay, so why is it essential to forgive in order to truly heal from the root at a soul level? Because when we go through trauma, through painful experiences at the expense of somebody else, it is a normal human response to feel hurt, to feel betrayed, to feel angry, to feel resentment, and in extreme cases, perhaps even hatred. However, while those feelings may be justified in the moment or perhaps for some time after the fact, when you allow these feelings to live within you for years on end, you only cause more harm to yourself because all of these negative feelings that I've just mentioned are going to eat away slowly at your soul. They're going to affect your physical health, your mental clarity, sanity. Is basically going to erode at every aspect of your life. So, you're justified to feel the way that you do, but if you don't do something to again cut those feelings from the root, you are only adding to the harm that's already been done. So I would like to talk about how do you know if you have not forgiven someone, because a lot of people are actually unaware that they haven't forgiven someone. A lot of people will forgive just because they are pressured to do so or because they've been taught it's the thing to do. So they might tell someone, I forgive you for what you did to me, but they don't really feel it. And that's still going to affect you in the ways that I've just described. So, how do you know if you haven't truly forgiven someone? If you still feel resentment, if you feel deep resentment, if you feel even hatred in some cases, if you still feel hurt, betrayed, you have not forgiven the person, and that is okay. But if you don't accept this, it's not going to be possible to do any of the things that I'm about to talk about. So I always say acceptance is the first step to solving any problem. So let's start there. Now, I want to break down how do we manage to forgive without hurting ourselves, without re-traumatizing ourselves. A lot of people don't believe in forgiveness because they say, well, I've forgiven and it's only led to more harm. It's only led to the person hurting me again. But this is because, again, you forgave without truly forgiving and when you were not ready to do so. So I'm going to break down the three main things that will help you to become ready to forgive for once and for all, so you can set yourself free and so that you don't have to live with so much resentment that's just going to weigh you down and again affect almost every aspect of your life. And the three things that I will be talking about today include taking accountability for the role that you played in your suffering, with the exception of children and the defenseless, learning to set healthy boundaries, not angry boundaries, just assertive boundaries that don't affect you. And then three, accepting the fact that anyone with no exceptions is capable of hurting others, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And as a matter of fact, all of us have hurt and disappointed others at some point in our life. Some of us have never been made aware of the fact that we have, but all of us have, no exceptions. So, starting with the first one, taking accountability for the role that you played in your own suffering. As I said, with the exception of children and the defenseless, all of us as adults, as developing adults, older adults, we play a role in our own suffering. Many of us just don't want to admit it because the ego is fragile, and in order to protect us, it just makes us want to point the finger and to say they were the narcissist, they were the a-hole, it's all their fault, and I'm just a victim. That is seldom the case, or I should probably say that's never the case, with the exceptions that I listed. And I'm going to use a very common example that probably applies to most of us, but again, this could be any other example. So, the person that you dated that hurt you a lot, that betrayed you, that did you very wrong, you chose to date them. You dismissed a lot of red flags. You dismissed your friends telling you the red flags that they saw, or telling you that they don't think this was a good person for you. You maybe jumped into the relationship when you were not ready to do so because you were desperate for love. Maybe you bounce from relationship to relationship, again, avoiding to do the inner work that is required to be prepared to take on a healthy relationship. All of these things can be attributed to you, to your fault, again, the role that you played in your own suffering and in the problem that resulted in the end. And while this may be difficult to take in because of the ego, again, the ego is fragile and it's going to protect you. In reality, if you take ownership for the role that you play in your suffering, you are empowering yourself. Because when you can accept the fact that I got into this situation because X, Y, and Z, then you have control over saying, I'm not going to repeat X, Y, and Z in the future. If I see X, Y, and Z in the future again, or if I notice it within myself, with another person, I'm going to take that as my cue to say, go. That person is not good for you. Pattern recognition, I already know how this ends. If it looks like a duck, it's likely a duck. It's not worth it taking the risk because my life and my mental health matters more than that. Then you are empowered to protect yourself in this world, to still live the experiences that you want to live without being so reckless and careless with yourself. It is so easy to look at others and to say, that person needs to work on this, that person needs to work on that, that person is dating a horrible person. But when it comes to us, it is very difficult to be objective because of our ego and our emotions. And that is why oftentimes you need an outside perspective. And it's usually the things that you don't want to hear, the people that take you off, that are likely telling you the insight about yourself that you actually need to hear to be able to take accountability for what you're doing wrong so that you don't repeat said mistakes. So once you can get to a place where you can say, okay, this is how I contributed to my problems, then you are getting closer to being ready to forgive. Now, the second thing, setting healthy boundaries. Learning to set boundaries from a place of love rather than from a place of hatred or anger, or from like, I'm not gonna tolerate this BS anymore, takes months to years, realistically. It took me years, but within the first months of practicing, I was already good enough to get by. But the more that you do it, the better that you're gonna get at it, the easier that it's going to become. Just like with anything else in life, literally any hobby, any skill that you start to put effort into and practice, it's going to become easier over time, and eventually gets to the point that you don't even really think about it. Kind of like driving. The longer that you've been driving, you're just kind of like on autopilot. You just know how to do it. So this is your sign to start working on those boundaries now, especially if you're a people pleaser or a recovering people pleaser. It is something that you need to start investing in today, because the longer that you delay it, the longer that it's going to take you to be able to truly forgive. And remember, when we forgive, we are set free from our traumas. And that is ultimately the goal. Now, I can make an entire separate video about how do we set healthy boundaries? How do we get to that place? And that is an entire video all on its own. There's a lot of resources out there. There's coaches, there's therapists, there's books, there's videos online that can help you get started. But again, there's a lot of people who set boundaries, but in reality, they just turn into the individuals who hurt them to begin with. A lot of people mistake boundaries for being an a-hole, and that is not the case. It is 1000% possible to set boundaries from a place of love with the goal of mending relationships, salvaging relationships, protecting yourself, protecting your peace. that is not going to lead to just toxicity and isolating yourself, or that it's going to lead to you surrounding yourself with people that are very cruel and unkind and that are gonna tell you everything that you want to hear, and yeah, cut this person off, that person's not, they don't deserve you. Okay, good, that's gonna make your ego feel good in the moment, but guess what, if that's not really who you are, and you're a kind loving person, and you really desire to reconcile, to fix the relationship, that ego boost is only going to benefit you for so long. You need to learn to set boundaries in a healthy way. And again, I'll make a separate video on that, but just know that that is the second step. Now, for the last step, and I believe the most difficult part of reaching this place of true forgiveness, is accepting the fact that anybody, yourself included, is capable of hurting others. And likely you already have. Because by nature, we are imperfect. We make mistakes on a daily basis. And there's likely people who you've hurt throughout your life, some very deeply, who have just never told you so, who have never told you, you know what, this really hurt me, because they didn't feel comfortable telling you, they didn't have the backbone to do it, or maybe because the circumstances didn't present themselves to have that conversation, and I just kind of fell off with certain people. Some of you know, some of you can take accountability and say, like, yeah, I was unfaithful to my partner. Yeah, I treated my parents horribly when all they did was try to help me. There's endless examples that I can give, but let's just accept that. Many of us are unwilling to forgive because we swear that we would never do X, Y, and Z horrible thing to hurt others. But the reality is that we just have not done those things. We have not been in a position to go down a slippery slope that's going to result in us making those mistakes. And God forbid that we ever find ourselves in a situation to make said mistakes, because if you are banking on the fact that just because you haven't done X, Y, and Z, you're a good person, what's going to happen if it ever does happen to you? Does that mean you're just a horrible person and there's no going back? Do you not deserve grace? Do you not deserve a chance to change, to grow, to learn from your mistakes? Doesn't everybody? And this is why I say that God is truly who helped me to accept this, because as I said, all of us or most of us can take accountability for the fact that we have hurt others in our life. And when I was going through my healing journey, I found myself feeling guilty for the people that I knew I had disappointed, for the mistakes that I knew I had done, maybe people that I've hurt, maybe myself included. And when I would ask God, can you please forgive me? I want to feel like I have a fresh start. And I just didn't really feel it. It dawned on me, how can I expect forgiveness from God when I'm not even giving it to the people who hurt me? And again, mind you, I don't even have to reconcile with them. I can just forgive them from afar. But here I am being a hypocrite saying, no, these people's mistakes are unforgivable, but yet, God, please forgive me for mine. What? And in psychological terms, that would explain why you experience cognitive dissonance and why your conscience is simply not clear, because you're being hypocritical. You want to be forgiven, you want to be at peace with yourself, but you don't extend that same grace to others. In reality, most of us are very fortunate that we did not grow up in an environment or surrounded by people who led us to make some of the horrible, despicable things that maybe somebody did to you, or that we see in the news, or that we read about on the internet. All of those people also started as an innocent child who needed guidance, who needed love. And unfortunately, the world is a very ugly and dangerous place. And some people don't have a saving grace, they don't have a support system. They don't just turn evil overnight. I mean, there are some people who are born like psychopaths, but that is a very low percentage of the population. For most of us, we just weren't loved right, we weren't guided right, we were filled with hatred, with resentment, and we fed that those feelings even more, and then it led us to become cynics and to say everyone's the same, might as well also be a horrible person since nobody cares. And then there you go, hurt people. So until you can take accountability for the role that you played in your suffering, how you've continued to enable yourself to repeat harmful patterns and allow people to harm you, until you can set boundaries from a place of love and not from a place of like, I'll show them and I'm gonna get even, no more Mr. Nice Guy. When you can accept the fact that you too could have hurt people in the ways that you swore you never would have, when you can accept that you have done that, then and only then will you be ready enough to forgive in the way that God intended for us to forgive, to really let things go. And in most circumstances, you will find that it is possible to actually reconcile and to make amends with people who you swore like you're just gonna cut off. And I say that from personal experience, as I have been going through my healing journey, both through the emotional inner work, but then also the spiritual work. I managed to not just make amends, but actually nourish tremendously relationships that at one point in my life I swore like I was gonna cut those people off. And now here I am rejoicing in their love. Now, this is some advanced level healing, and full transparency, I've only managed to come this far because of God, learning from His Word, and everything that He teaches us through the Bible is what has helped me to truly love people in the way that He wants us to do. And then as a result, all of the people who I once thought to be heartless or didn't care have softened their heart to me and have allowed me to see beautiful parts of them where it opaques the negative things that once bothered me so much. And guess what? It all comes back to benefit me at the end of the day. Yes, these people that I am forgiving and some of them making amends with are also benefiting from, the love that I am also sharing to them. But I'm the one that's at peace. I'm the one that's the happiest. I'm the one that's walking around the world now carrying this humongous baggage of resentment, despair, hatred, hurt, bitterness. I don't have to do that anymore because I've forgiven, and again I've set boundaries in a loving way that's going to prevent me from getting hurt over and over again. And it doesn't feel exhausting. Is it difficult at times? Is it uncomfortable at times? Most definitely. I'm not a robot, but it's manageable. It's doable, and it's worth it. So when you hear people say forgiveness traumatizes you, you are not doing it right. You're not doing it right if you go into forgiveness without doing the things that I just talked about. It's like if you're going into war with a wooden sword and expecting that you're gonna defeat the enemy that's in a tank. It's just not gonna happen. You're not prepared enough to do so. And why is it a worthwhile thing to invest in? Because again, it's what's going to really heal you from the heart, from the soul, what's going to set you free, what's going to allow you to repair relationships that deep down you probably wish would have been perfect from day one, but life happens, we make mistakes, we live and we learn. Oh well, we can choose to let things go and to make amends not just for ourselves but for the sake of others, and ultimately it just becomes a win-win situation all around. Anyway, if you did make it to the end, thank you for watching, and I truly hope that this helped you and that it reached the individuals who needed to hear this the most. I know that I would have benefited largely from this if I would have heard this at a much younger age, but better late than never, and for you, hopefully it was sooner than I did. I'm going to link my other socials down below if you want a variety of videos. I post almost daily on TikTok, and then on Instagram, it's mostly like reposts from other creators. Again, all pertaining to our healing journey, our self worth. So if you're into that type of content, definitely follow me here, but then also on my other socials. And if you are interested in working with me as your life coach, check out my website to see if we may be a good fit for each other. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.